everybody, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about.
Hi,
Today's
everybody.
guest
I'm Chef
is Gwyn
AJ.
Whittaker,
Today
and
is
she
March
is from
22nd.
GreenFare Restaurant. And I heard about her from my friend Sharon McRae, and she really is up to doing some great things in the world that she's going to talk about. But we also want to find out about her restaurant because it's unique in many ways. Please welcome her to the show. It's so nice to connect with you.
Hi, thanks, Chef AJ, for having me on board. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear all the work you're doing with diabetes. And I know you're even going to show a video clip. But first, let's get to know you a little bit. How did you arrive on the plant-based scene? When did you become plant-based? And tell us about this restaurant, because there's something a little bit different about it. Like, for example, I would even be able to eat there.
It's very different. We had a fellow from DoorDash stop in December, and we had a line of people waiting to be weighed in on the scales. And he looked at me and he said, "Is this a restaurant?" It's probably the only one that has scales. We had a line of people. So I have been on the plant-based journey for many years. I think in my teens, I stopped eating cows. In my 20s, I stopped eating poultry. And seafood was the last thing that I gave up probably about 10 years ago because I clung to the you have to eat animal protein, for your health, and calcium for your bones. So every time I gave something up, my health improved. And I watched Forks Over Knives maybe 2 years after I lost a partner from heart disease. And Tony was 50 years old, and he died suddenly one night. His mom and dad had both died of heart disease. And from South Carolina, everything was barbecued and fried. And so when I watched Forks Over Knives, Dr. Esselstyn really resonated with me. Heart disease is a preventable disease is not something that I'd heard before. And so I started exploring it. My background is a technologist. I ran electrical engineer. I ran a company in the national security space for 10 years. And when I sold my company, I spent a lot of time researching plant-based diet. And I ended up talking with T. Colin Campbell, and very gracious with this time. I had planned half hour with him, and he gave me a couple of hours, and it was basically, how can I help? And I don't know if you've seen the Plant Pure Nation film his son did, that I helped fund that film. And when it was being done, we actually did a local project where I brought 45 people to make a dietary change for just 10 days. So it was a plant-based jumpstart was what Nelson was calling the kickstarts, to make a dietary change for just 10 days. And so Nelson Campbell brought food up, and T. Colin Campbell came down. And at the end of 10 days, we had done before and after blood testing. And we saw in 10 days a 20% cholesterol drop. And that's better than any Lipitor or any statin would ever do. And so I started getting letters from people saying, this 10-day thing changed my life. And so I had the idea of opening an educational restaurant. And Pericles Silva from Whole Foods joined me in the 2015. So we signed a lease in September, opened the restaurant in November 2015, and started doing PCRM's 21-day kickstart in December. We've had over 1,000 people go through it, and it's been life-changing for people.
But tell us a little bit about the restaurant. It's not just vegan.
It's not just vegan. It is vegan, but I like to tell people, and actually, if you go to our Yelp, I say, if you don't know about SOS free, then you probably aren't going to like it. So I try to set expectations low. And it's not only plant-based, but it's organic. We actually went through the organic certification. And so, we say if you get things that are organic, there's like 400 chemicals that you're not getting in your food. So we've been open for we're in our 6th year. And this past year was our best year, in that I lost less money last year than I had the past 5 years. So it's been a personal journey for me to share my education with people that had not been exposed to it. So, that was really my goal.
Yeah. Well, Sharon loves your food, and haven't had the pleasure of being there yet, but I see on your YouTube channel you've had Dr. Esselstyn there, and you have his lecture. Does anybody just kind of wander in there not knowing what it is?
Sometimes we've had people wander in. Kip Anderson, who did the What the Health and Cowspiracy. Sometimes we've had, celebrities, some of the local Red American football team, Washington players come in. So we've had a number of celebrities that come in and do our kickstart. We're next to a Thai restaurant, so a lot of times people will come in there and they'll look around and they'll they'll go sort of back and forth, and they'll notice, there's a pharmacy on the other side of the Thai restaurant. If they do their blood pressure after they eat at our place, there's no change. But you can imagine what happens at the other place.
It's interesting because the people that eat like us without sugar, oil, salt, we would love a restaurant like yours, but I don't know if there's enough people to really support an industry of SOS-free restaurants.
Yeah, we did probably a lot of things that other restaurants are doing. I attended Dr. McDougall's 10-day wellness retreat, and right before I was getting ready to open the restaurant, and we had a vegan and organic wine and beer that we were going to serve, because all of the advice that I'd been given on a restaurant was make sure you have your liquor license on day one to be profitable. And so I was listening to Dr. Esselstyn, and he sort of tossed off the fact that everybody knows that alcohol is a toxin. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I guess I never really had heard it phrased that way, but if you go to cancer.org, it's a class A carcinogen. And so I took it off our menu, and I guess for a number of years, we had a bring your own. So we basically allowed people to bring it in, but we didn't sell it. And so that was sort of the compromise that I reached around that. And this past year, we basically did away with the license because people aren't eating in the restaurant anyway. So it's been a journey. It's been people say, how long have you dreamed of opening a restaurant? And it was like, well, since May. It was a very short time frame with the restaurant idea. But it's really not to serve a meal, it's really to change a life. And so when you come in, we have a whole array of all the books and videos that you've ever seen. I've hosted all of the rock stars, Furman, Colin Campbell's come maybe half a dozen times, Neil Barnard. So all of the leaders in nutrition have come through. Jean Bauer from Farm Sanctuary, Lisa from the Humane Rescue Alliance. So we do community events. We started a Veg Fest, and 2 years ago, we had over 5,000 people come to the very first Veg Fest that we hosted. And that was pretty exciting. We're going to do a virtual Veg Fest in a couple of weeks with Colin Campbell and Dr. Baxter Montgomery talking about their COVID experiences.
Wow, I love that. We're not really there to serve a meal. We're there to change a life. If only every restaurant, most people that eat at restaurants are not necessarily looking to improve their health.
Yeah, and a lot of restaurants do change a life, but just not in a positive way.
Yeah, so, that's just incredible. What kind of dishes do you serve, and what are the most popular?
So the number one dish is it's actually we took it from the Dr. Esselstyn. It's the Rip Esselstyn sweet spinach and sweet potato lasagna, and so it's got whole grain wheat noodles, but it's got layers of sweet potatoes. It's got like tofu, broccoli, carrots, spinach, and it's very labor intensive to make. And it's got a pine nut topping, and we make our own tomato sauce. So it's really, really delicious.
That's incredible. Now, in a restaurant that serves, it's funny when people call the food SOS because it's actually SOS free, no sugar, oil, salt. Do you offer salt on the table for people that absolutely have to have it?
We have done that in the past, and because it's an organic restaurant, we actually had a salt without the anti-clumping ingredient that is carcinogenic. Our salt would always clump, which was not a good thing for our customers, but it's just sort of is what it is. And then since the pandemic, we haven't had people dining in the restaurant. We have a lot of tables outside. So now we basically have the small packets of salt that we send out with the rest, with the food if people ask for that.
Nice. Let's see. We have some fans on. Vivian says, so great to see Gwyn here. I love GreenFare. Deborah says it's our favorite restaurant. Very nice. Christine says, how do we get one in Las Vegas? Well, that good luck with that in Vegas. I remember I used to do my conference every year in Vegas, and we would get the hotel to do the food at SOS Tree, but really the only place I could eat there was Soup Plantation. And now they've closed all their locations.
Yeah, I looked at franchising the restaurant about a year and a half ago, and I'm sort of glad that I didn't go that path. But I think I want to retain control. And so I am looking at partnerships now where we could scale the recipes and the meal plans that we do. And we do the PCRM 21-day kickstart every month. So we do those all online now. So we've had people from North Carolina, and I think we've got somebody from Iowa and California in our class next month. So it's made a broader appeal for that. And PCRM.org, you can always do the 21 vegan kickstart. You have to make and buy the food yourself, but we make it easy for people by providing the food.
That is such a great idea. Nancy says, a friend of mine raved about GreenFare Organic Cafe, and they had the food at Sharon McRae's Eat Well, Stay Well conference, and it was delicious.
Oh, thank you.
And where exactly is it located, Louise wants to know specifically?
It's 408 Eldon Street in Herndon, Virginia. So it's in Fairfax County, and we're about 15 minutes from Dulles Airport. So we have a lot of people that put it on their calendars, and when they travel to the DC area, they fly into Dulles and pass through GreenFare and buy mass quantities of food. So we've had, I think I mentioned, we've had over 1,000 people go through the 21-day kickstart. And for me, being sort of an engineer, the most interesting thing was how quickly people's bodies change when they're doing things optimally and they're doing it for a consistent period of time. So we can usually see blood pressure normalize by the end of the first week. And the doctors that have gone through the program now take their patients off blood pressure medication when they start. And I've seen cholesterol drop 30, 35, 40% in 10 days. So it's been really dramatic. The diabetes program, I think we're going to talk a little bit about that. It's 28 to 30 days, we watch the signs of type 2 diabetes basically diminish. I'm working on a case study for the American College of Lifestyle Medicine to show that over 90 days, it's not only a short-term reversal, but it's actually sustainable. So we're starting blood testing for the 3-month interval this week. So I'm excited about that.
Louise says, can you open one in New York?
That's people's usually, but their biggest complaint is, why don't you open one near me? We get people sending us real estate all the time saying, how about here? How about here? So when enough people visit us and love what we're doing, then, we'll continue to expand.
Yeah, we're getting requests for Illinois, Connecticut, all over the place. That's amazing. So Jennifer says, what is the clumping agent in salt, and would Himalayan pink salt from Trader Joe's have it?
It's usually not what you eat, it's what you don't eat. So if you get like the Morton salt, that's where they put, when it rains, it pours. That's how you know that it doesn't have the clumping agent in it. But the Himalayan pink salt, the Celtic sea salt is also, those are two good ones.
Nice, thanks. So tell us about how to reverse diabetes in 28 days, all the wonderful work you're doing.
Yeah, so one of the interesting things I think was when we do the Kickstart classes, which we do every month, it's 4 classes and we provide 2 meals a day for 21 days. We did those in the restaurant, and we would allow people that had attended the Kickstart in the past to sort of give mini testimonials. So when they would stop by to pick up food, they would share sort of their brief story with the participants. And one month, this lady came in the back, and I recognized her, but I couldn't place when she had gone through the program. And she asked if she could speak. And she turned out to be a professor at George Mason University. And she started out by saying to the class, I reluctantly joined the program in December of 2019, and I had full-blown Crohn's disease. And by the end of 21 days, my Crohn's disease was gone and it never came back. And so this has been like 5 years. I've had the same thing with rheumatoid arthritis, high blood pressure, all kinds of skin conditions, elevated PSAs. So it's been with the mix of reversal of kidney disease from somebody that was on a kidney donor list with less than 20% kidney function in 21 days, the kidney function was over 40%. So it's dramatic when you can do these intense programs with people. A year ago, I opened a GreenFare Health and Wellness. It's a nonprofit. It's a certified nonprofit that we did the Veg Fest through. And I decided to focus in December on a single disease in an underrepresented group of people. So African Americans who had very high COVID mortality rates. And type 2 diabetes is one of the highest comorbidities. So I recruited 25 people to go through this program. It was done as a donation through the nonprofit, and people got 3 meals a day, 5 classes. They got Neil Barnard's Reversing Diabetes book, and we did before and after A1C blood testing. And every time they came in, they got weighed, they got photographed, and they had their blood pressure taken. And so we did a lot of the data analytics around that. And it was just, some of the stories were just really, really amazing.
You want to show the video?
I would love to. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for asking.
And just a quick question from Lauren. How do we attend the virtual Veg Fest that you're doing?
Let's see. It'll be on the, it's on Eventbrite. I'm just getting ready to post this. I do a newsletter every other week. So if you go to greenfare.com and sign up for the newsletter, it'll have the links to the virtual Veg Fest in there. I think that's the easiest path.
And when is it taking place? What dates?
It's on Sunday, April 19th, I believe. I think it's the 19th.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Heather says, I have diabetes only a year now, but I really want to reverse it.
Okay. And that's kind of the cool thing, I think, is the closer you can get to the no added salt, oil, and sugar, and the intermittent fasting. We talked to people about doing 3 meals a day and not eating throughout the day. So the fewer times you eat, with diabetes, I think you have to be careful with your blood sugar, but things that aren't going to make your blood sugar spike. If you're going to eat fruit with a dessert, but whole grains, beans, and vegetables, at the center of every meal.
Do somebody has to live near you to participate? Lauren wants to know, in your program. People
can take the classes that we do now. It's we do four classes. The diabetes is 5 classes, so we do one specific class on diabetes education. And what we do is we pull together a lot of the information from PCRM. We also incorporate some Dr. Clapper from True North, Doug Lyles, Jeff Novak. So we bring sort of the best of a lot of the doctors together and curate the information. So we're providing sort of an intense, and then the whole label reading class is really interesting about basically how to shop. There's an app called the GreenFare app that basically helps you make shopping decisions. So if you download the app and the access code is Eat Plants, you can use your camera to scan a barcode, and it'll give you a green thumbs up or a red thumbs down on the amount of salt, sugar, and fat and animal products in processed food. So that helps, to your earlier point, navigating some of the vegan products that people, are sort of inclined to get.
Great.
So, would you like to see the video?
Absolutely.
Okay. My name is Gwyn Whittaker. I'm the owner of the GreenFare Cafe and the CEO for the GreenFare Health and Wellness nonprofit. Because the restaurant had been focused on education, the nonprofit was a logical extension to do really a deep dive around specific health issues that people had and focusing on the impact of nutrition and education. The first project that we've been working on is this case study on type 2 diabetes in African Americans. Titus Unlimited, he was having a discussion with Gwen Whittaker, and it was about reversing diabetes with a plant-based diet. I was intrigued. My goal is to get to a point where I don't have to be on medication anymore.
To be healthier, but specifically with losing weight, and of course that always helps. But to stabilize my blood sugar, because I'm on a path of getting it under control where it was previously way out of control.
I was first diagnosed as a diabetic back in 2000. Good and bad. I mean, there's times when it's been under control and times when it hasn't been.
My father was he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. At the time, he should have retired at 65 years old. He held on for as much as he could. I'm 60 years old now. And the doctor gave me a reality check and told me, again, my A1C numbers were trending upward. And my best friend who introduced me to this case study, it just fell into my lap, and I couldn't afford to not be a part of this case study.
Whatever I could do to learn about the diabetes, lower my blood pressure, reducing my cholesterol, I would love to learn about it so that I can remove myself from medication and live a more healthier life.
I had just gotten blood work back that said that I was pre-diabetic, and I also have high blood pressure, and I've had high blood pressure for 37 years. I'm 69 years old now.
I know men in my family have lived past 56, usually dying of heart-related stuff. I got myself checked out and found that I was diabetic.
I have high blood pressure. I have type 2 diabetes. I have now some kidney problems that have just been diagnosed. A lack of kidney function, loss of kidney function. And I'm hoping that diet can be a help to reverse some of these issues.
The organic plant-based diet that we use is low fat, without added salt. That has a huge impact on blood pressure. If you take out a lot of the simple sugars that people have, that's going to impact diabetes, as well as the high, especially high fat. Animal protein is going to be inflammatory, whatever type, whether it's chicken, fish, dairy. So when you take those things out, then people usually have very, very rapid recovery.
Never ever had a doctor recommend getting off the meds. If anything, they progress toward more meds. Generally, they will say lifestyle changes, diet and exercise help, but there's no guidance associated with that. I've tried various things in the past, mainly to lose weight. That's not my issue now. But this is the first plant-based diet. I'm the dietitian and the chef for GreenFare. The program is 28 days. So all participants receive 3 meals per day plus a fruit per day. So this pickup is spaghetti puttanesca, black bean chili. You use just organic ingredients, all made SOS. SOS is the short for salt, oil, and sugar-free. So they are all plant-based, low-fat meals. You don't use any kind of oil or oil substitution in the meals.
and also sugar-free. Not sugar-free in the terms of the food is free of sugar. You don't add any processed sugar.
So the 28-day program included both pre and post diagnosis. So we actually did blood tests at the beginning and end, measuring lipid profile, which is all the cholesterol numbers. And we looked at A1C as well, which is the blood sugar. Twice a week, we measured weight, blood pressure, and took photographs. So we had a lot of biometric data.
133 over 72. What important is how you feel. I feel good.
At GreenFare with the restaurant, we're pairing not only the classes, but we're pairing it with food. One of the changes that happened with COVID-19 was moving classes inside the restaurant onto the Zoom platform. And each class has usually fairly small components of videos that we're watching. We have dialogue between the videos, and then Pericles actually does some cooking demonstrations.
Or you can serve a baked potato.
The way that blood pressure is specific to a particular point in time, cholesterol is a point in time, A1C is an average over 90 days, right? So I had expected bigger drops, but when I put it in context and I had our diabetes nurse look at the numbers, she's like, these are great, because you just measured it over really a 25-day period.
I'm a little lighter in my shoes these days. Not just the weight, but just the way I feel physically. I probably dropped 11 pounds. My resting heart rate's dropped down. All my numbers went down.
I think that my numbers overall, not just looking at the A1C, are all better.
I had an appointment with my doctor on Wednesday, 3 days ago, and he said, "You're a new man."
I actually feel great. I mean, I have so much more energy. I sleep better at night.
I was able to meet my personal, goals. Cholesterol dropped by 50%. My A1C is down, and I'm excited to go to my doctor and show her what I'm working with.
Well, the last time I was at my doctor's, she did my blood work over, and she told me that she said she could take me off.
The blood pressure, I can see it, it came down. But the biggest thing for me, it was getting my A1C under control, because I've been working on it. And it was on a downward trend anyway, but I could tell that this made a big difference.
My diastolic number, the bottom number, was in the 70s. And that's something that has never happened to me in the last 30, 35 years or so. And I've been on all kinds of blood pressure medicine, and none of that medicine has done that for me.
If you're doing this, good for your body and your digestive system. I think there's a tendency to want to try to do other things as well. So I've been either biking for an hour or walking for a minimum half hour, 40 minutes every day, and meditating.
Now I find myself, after exercising for 30 minutes, I want to push myself. I'm like, okay, I haven't challenged myself enough to get winded or feel like I'm pooped. Whereas before, I'm struggling,
The exciting thing, I think, was the rapid impact, especially on hypertension, high blood pressure, that resulted anywhere from a 20, 30, 40, as high as 50-point drop. From a cholesterol standpoint, we saw up to 40% drop in total cholesterol. Then the A1C measurement, we had a significant drop across the board. We're going to be retaking in 3 months. So the goal had been not only to get people to be successful within a 28-day program, but also to demonstrate sustainability.
The results have spoken for themselves. And you can't argue with the science or what the numbers say.
I don't know any other way to do it other than from the things that I've read is to remove animal fats from your body, so that's just going to be my focus.
I'm like anybody else that grew up that's in my age group, that's African American. I used to love pork chop, fried chicken. We are literally killing ourselves with food. And there is no food worth dying for.
The traditional African American diet is designed to give you diabetes if you are inclined to have it. then you'll probably get it on the African American diet.
The downside of having diabetes and high blood pressure and all the things that I was dealing with is that it drags you down health-wise. It infects your spirit, mentally, physically. I feel my, I don't want to say existence, but quality of life got better.
I'd say go ahead and give it a try. Give it a try. You don't have anything to lose. The benefits are documented everywhere. And you'd be surprised at how your body adapts and how you feel. And I think it's a good thing. And you cannot argue with the number. You can't argue with the science.
That was amazing. Are you still in touch with any of these people?
Well, we are. I'm actually going to be sending scripts out tomorrow for this, the follow-on blood testing. So that'll be exciting to get those numbers back.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Healthy You.
That's really amazing. It's almost like you can make a documentary.
It's you know, probably the most interesting thing is 3 of the people are actually friends of mine. One was leaving the State Department. He just retired from State Department. Another one just retired from the Defense Intelligence Agency. One was an ambassador. And so when you see senior people in the defense and intelligence community making these dietary changes, they're going to be very influential as they go forward in their, you know, their next steps. They sort of normalize it for the rest of the population.
It's so cool though that you have the restaurant to support it, because I think that's the food can be the hardest part for some people, especially when they're getting started.
I'm not a great cook myself, and so it's awesome to be able to stop in and pick up a bag of 7 meals and put those in my refrigerator. And you know, I am a single person, so you know, there's not a lot of food waste. There's not a lot of packaging because it's not shipped to me. It's basically we use all compostable containers that we went to about 3 years ago. So they're made of sugar cane, and they dissolve after 90 days. So it's trying to do things that are going to be as we have a seasonal and local menu too. So we're buying things from local farmers, 150 miles. We probably get 80% of our produce locally. And then the more you learn about seasonal, the more benefits, health benefits you get from eating sort of seasonally as well.
Well, Kathy, who's watching live, says I'm 1/10 of a point away from diabetes and that she's addicted to the white stuff. I'm guessing that's like sugar and flour. How did you choose the people to work with? Did they come to you? Did you put an ad somewhere in the local paper?
It was easier than you might suspect. I had a goal of 25 people, and I think we started out with 27 and then 2 dropped out. We did it in December, which is a hard month. I think if people, we had one person that traveled and one person that changed jobs. So, but we did finish with 25 people. And I went out and did different podcasts to drum up support. So this Titus Unlimited, we had a number of people from him, some health coaches. So a lot of people more through word of mouth, you know, signed up for the program. And I think they were all very glad that they did. We did surveys and 100% of people were thrilled that they had gone through the program, that everybody got benefit from it.
Did they stay the course, most of them?
You know, we have kept a community. Every couple of weeks, we continue to meet with people, and people sort of come in and out. So I wouldn't say it's consistent, but I think the numbers don't lie. So when we get the A1C back the second time, we'll probably have a sense whether, you know, whether people are actually on the path they say they're on.
Johnny says GreenFare has done an extraordinary amount of good in educating people on the benefit of whole food plant-based eating. Our household owes so much to Gwyn, Pericles, and the GreenFare staff.
Oh, thank you.
Many people watching have just signed up for your newsletter. The website is right in the chat. The chat means on YouTube. You don't see chat on Facebook, unfortunately. So head over. Aaron says, what is the name of the app again, please?
It's GreenFare, Green F-A-R-E, and then it's Skinny Shop, actually. So it helps you to shop and stay skinny. And there's an access code, all lowercase, eat plants.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much. I could put that in the chat. I mean, I could put it in the chat, but I can also put it in the show notes if you like. So we had somebody who's actually a nurse send in a question, and she said that she's been trying to convince her friend to transition from keto to whole food plant-based. She gets very afraid when her blood sugar goes up over 200 because she's worried she'll become insulin dependent. I explained that blood sugar normally goes up with meals, but then comes back down, and that her insulin resistance will improve as she loses weight. What advice do you have for your friends? And did any of the participants worry about this or experience this while they were doing the program?
Yeah, it was really interesting. We had a sort of a pre-session discussion with people, and most people went to their doctors and got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes while they were at their doctor's office. It wasn't something that they went in knowing they had. And they came walking out with a prescription for medication and the discussion that you're going to need this for the rest of your life. They didn't come out with food to reverse it. And I think in our society, it's been drilled in us to stay away from the white stuff. And the white stuff that we should be eating, maybe not white rice, but brown rice and potatoes and corn, are complex carbohydrates. And the thing that we should really be avoiding is oil and animal fats. Those are the things that really promote the type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. And when you take animal products and oil out, the A1C starts to decline right away. And we've had people with technology's gotten very sophisticated now. People actually get implants with measuring devices for their blood sugar. So if they eat, they'll know what amount of medication to take. And so we had this one fellow came in and he ate one of our muffins that's made with oat flour, sweetened with dates. And he took his measurement. So he held his phone next to his neck, took his blood sugar measurement. He's like 15 minutes later, there's no change in my blood sugar. And that's the benefit of eating a whole food, whole plant food diet. So that's, we gave every participant a copy of Dr. Neil Barnard's Reversing Diabetes book. And so that's, that's a good one for your friend to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you have a doctor working on the program with them, like that they all saw the same doctor, or did they just go to their individual doctors?
I sort of like it when we are doing things sort of outside of the medical community. We tell people to work with their doctors, and in that way we sort of influence the doctors quite a bit because of their surprise when the patients go back to them and ask to be taken off medication, or they've had, in this case, we had 12 people lose more than 10 pounds in just 28 days. And so that's a lot of weight when you're not starving yourself, when you're eating 3 meals a day, a pound of food at each meal. That's a lot of weight to make that change. So the doctors get really interested, and we've had maybe 36 doctors go through the program themselves. 1 month I had 4 doctors, and the month after that, one of the doctors sent 3 of the people from her office through the program. So it's really, we've both gone on the holistic holiday at Sea Cruise. I remember, one doctor, after Dr. Esselstyn had spoke, say, why weren't we taught this in medical school? And it just dawned on me, doctors don't learn about nutrition. Maybe one class the entire time that they're in school, they learn to diagnose symptoms and prescribe medications. And so, from an engineering perspective, I look at the dashboard. You have your body as a dashboard, and when your engine light comes on, you don't put a piece of black tape over your engine light because you're not fixing the root cause. But that's what the medical community does with the symptoms, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, They give us pills and prescriptions. And so you lose the context of your body telling you that what you're doing isn't working right.
You know, it's interesting. Were they happy that they could eat things like carbs, like rice and potatoes and beans?
Oh, yeah, I mean, people feel like they've been deprived for years. I love eating pasta. I miss muffins, fruit. All these things that I think doctors are very concerned about the glycemic index, and sort of intuitively, you know that eating butter is not going to be better for you long term than eating fruit. And so the basic problem with glycemic index is it's measuring the wrong thing, right? It's measuring something that's high fat versus healthy, and your body responds to that in a way that it's not going to reverse the disease by eating low glycemic food index. You may slow the progression, but you're not going to reverse the disease.
It's interesting, when people talk about, though they can't eat rice when they're diabetic, I direct them to the work of Walter Kempner, who not only reversed diabetes with his patients eating rice, but white rice yet.
And I think he mixed apple juice in the white rice as well. He sweetened it with juice. So it was sweet white rice, but he reversed diabetes with that.
Yeah. I love white rice. I mean, I know that brown rice is healthier, but that's my guilty pleasure once in a while is white rice.
Yeah, I grew up in the South, so rice pudding was one of the desserts, and you think of rice and raisins and cinnamon is pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Rice. Well, it's Jewish. We always know rice pudding. So and we can make it completely vegan and healthy. So Gwyn, Chrissy says, Gwyn is an amazing woman with the need to help people, hands-on girl. So since you own a restaurant, do you ever cook yourself or do you just get all your food there?
Oh, when we first were talking about coming on the show, I cook, but for my dogs. So I have 2 plant-based dogs, and I cook batches of lentils, rice, and sweet potatoes. I freeze that, and then I mix it with oats and hemp seed and flaxseed, and they get a basic kibble sort of mixed with that. I think that's insurance, but primarily they're eating whole plant food. And I have one dog that's 10, and she's been on this for 5 years, and another dog that's 6, and he's been on it for a long time, and they're healthy and their weight is good and no medications. So
that's amazing. What's your favorite thing to eat, either in your home or from the restaurant?
So I like sort of simple things. I'm sweet potatoes is like baking a sweet potato and having some veggies on the side is that's a perfect meal for me.
That's my lunch every day for the last 10 years. Yeah. I just love it. I never get tired of it, especially when it's like a hana yam or a Japanese and it's roasted.
Yeah. I think Dr. Fauci, he was on an interview and I heard him talk about he carried sweet potatoes around for snacks. If he got so he couldn't eat, that was his go-to. So that was sort of, he may be a closet vegan, I'm not sure.
Oh, well, it works for the Okinawans who eat, I hear, something like more than 70% of their calories from sweet potatoes. So I think it's nature's perfect food. That's neat that you make your dogs food. Maybe you can do a demonstration, show how to do that. Do you use the Instant Pot?
I don't. I have an Instapot, and Sharon showed me how to use it, and I haven't pulled it out of my cupboard yet. It's sort of one of those things where they have like a staple gun and a glue gun. They're like devices that can hurt you. I am intimidated by the pressure aspect of the Instapot.
Oh, that's funny. I promise you, they're very safe. But that's funny. I think once you get used to it, you'll love it.
The more times you do it, I think the better it is. But I steam the rice. I have a rice cooker, so I usually bake sweet potatoes. I steam rice, and then I cook a pot of beans. So usually within an hour, the potatoes are ready, and then I mix that together. They get curry, so turmeric on their the lentils, and they get blueberries and asparagus, and I'll tell you, the dogs love, they've been dogs have been eating what humans eat for 10,000 years. And they tell you don't feed people food to dogs, primarily because people food is so bad that not only will it make your dog sick, it'll probably make you sick too. But if you do it right, we can both be healthy.
You know, I've been struggling with this. Maybe you can help me, because none of my dogs have been vegan, and I've been vegan for 44 years, but I always get older dogs, and it's sort of like they're kind of set in their ways. And I give them mostly vegan. So in other words, I always get the vegan kibble, but if I don't give them a little bit, I can't get them to eat. And I've tried, but it's so hard when you have like a tiny dog and she won't eat for 5 days. Is there a way to get them to eat vegan if they seem to not want to?
I think it's offering different things. So most dogs love sweet potatoes and rice. And so if you start adding those things in, just small amounts, most dogs love blueberries, they love sweet peas. This morning they had raw asparagus. I actually cooked some purple potatoes. So it's like the colors of the rainbow, it's every, the pet food industry came out in the 1960s, and it's basically processed food. And so, for me, I had an older dog that he passed at 6 months, but I changed his diet when he was 8, and he had allergies, and he had a liver tumor, and it's like all of these diseases. And it's like you can't do what I'm doing and watch people's health change and not think if you change your dog's diet, their health's not going to change too.
Yeah, thank you. Alyssa says you have beautiful skin.
Thank you.
Must be all those sweet potatoes, huh?
Yeah. I'm 63. Probably shouldn't say that, but I can tell you that as my diet has changed, the inflammation is gone. I think I can go work out and lift weights or go for a run, and I don't feel it the next day and the day after that. So my inflammation is gone. I don't have joint pain. I'm on no medication, and my skin is better than when it was when I was in my 40s. Truly, I believe that. So,
I know, me too. It's so weird.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
do you think you'd ever come on again from the restaurant? Maybe Pericles could just like do a recipe? And we could see the restaurant?
Yeah, Pericles would love to do that. Yeah.
I think people would really love to see inside, and maybe he could just make, it doesn't have to be the lasagna, but something simple, and just, we could see the inside. People are asking about cats being vegan, and that's not I'm trying to get a vegan vet on the show, and I know they sell vegan cat food, so I don't want to get into anything. I don't like getting into controversial things. So
you have to do a lot of research, even with the dogs. I have a stack of books about 6 inches high that I did a lot of research before I started experimenting on my dogs. And it's, in the case of dogs, I think it's adding some good stuff in and not, taking everything away, because especially if they've been eating one way for a long time, and cats they have different essential, they're a different species. They have different essential requirements than we do.
Absolutely. Let's see, I just saw something on here that I was going to read. Oh, Lissa said, I'd love to see a demo on pet food. So maybe Gwyn will make hers. But also, Lissa, if you do the search in my YouTube, I did have Sanai Suzuki, who wrote a vegan dog food book, do a demo, and she'll be back on the show very soon. She actually made dog biscuits.
Yeah, I'm working on a dog food book. I'm probably like 95% finished.
Well, let me know when it comes out. We'll have you back on, and maybe you will demonstrate a recipe from it then.
The one thing I would say is buy organic for pets and kids. One of the things that you'll learn is that some of the implications of glyphosate in food actually prevents some of the essential amino acids from being absorbed that are needed to absorb protein. So protein absorption can be impacted by high glyphosate levels in food. So, when I buy pet food, I buy organic brand.
Well, that makes sense. How has the community embraced the restaurant? Has anybody like just wandered in off the street, not knowing anything about it, ate there and just had a revelation?
Yeah, that's kind of I haven't really advertised as a vegan restaurant. And I think when we first opened, I read an article that said, people were turned off by the term vegan because it was judgmental. And I think that has probably changed over the past couple of years, but I haven't, I basically say it's a whole plant food restaurant, focused on education. And the goal is if people are going to come in and they say, this is good food, it doesn't matter that it's vegan or not, it just is good food, then you get people open to the possibility that it's something that they could not only improve their health, but also enjoy doing.
I know. I sure wish we had something like that here. We have a few vegan restaurants in Palm Springs, but they're all about, the hyper palatable sugar, fat, and salt combination. So, there's really nothing for me to eat there. So
yeah, it's True North. I spent a week out at True North. One of the things we've started doing in our classes now is around intermittent fasting. So before I do anything to my customers, I do it myself. And I spent a week there doing a water fast and learned about, basically what their offering was. It's a great place to go if you have extreme health problems. But they have whole plant food, free of added SOS restaurant there too. So if you're in the Santa Rosa area, you can stop into there. It's not like a full service sit down restaurant. It's like a buffet, but it is there.
And what's it called?
True North.
Oh, True North. Yes. Oh, of course. I thought you were saying there was another restaurant in addition to True North that had that kind of food.
But Alan Goldhammer is.
Yeah, he'll be on the show on Sunday. Yes, he's
cool.
my friend and mentor. Yeah, that's.
I'm one of the executive producers of Game Changers, the Game Changers film, and so when I was out visiting, we showed the Game Changers before it came out in theaters. So people were pretty jazzed about that.
Yeah. What do you think is the hardest part of the SOS free or even the low fat? Because I was thinking when I still live in LA, there was this when I used to go to restaurants. There was a restaurant I really liked, and it wasn't vegan, but it was mostly vegan. It was called Local Nocal. And it was a play on words because it was local, but it was also LOCAL, locale. And NOCAL was NOCHOL, no cholesterol. So the idea of this, and actually there was another restaurant in LA at the time called Gratis, which meant free. And this is why it went around when low fat was like a thing. It wasn't necessarily vegan, but people were low fat. And both these restaurants failed miserably because people seem to like a lot of fat in their food, and because in general, I think people that are really, really health conscious maybe don't go to restaurants or don't go as much or things like that. So I'm wondering from your perspective, what is the missing from people coming in? Is it the salt? Is it that it's lower in fat? Because sugar's in entrees, at least, we're not hopefully putting a lot of sugar. So what is it that you think makes it so hard for people?
Yeah, it's the fat. I mean, because fat is, whether it's potato chips that are salt and fat or cookies that are sugar and fat, it's really the fat that gets people into problems. So, you can say a low fat vegan diet that's going to basically help people with diabetes. The blood pressure things, that's when you start getting into restaurant food and processed food. And it's been sort of eye-opening with the restaurants these days too. I'd never been behind the scenes in a restaurant, and it's not what it used to be. There's a truck that shows up that has, whether it's Indian food or Thai food or Chinese food, and they deliver frozen food to the back of the restaurant that goes in a freezer. And it's why a restaurant can have a menu with 10 different pages of things on it. And they just pull number 3 out of the freezer and they put it in a pan with oil and salt. And then they serve a shiny plate of food to you that's nutritionally deficient and very high in salt and oil.
What you're saying is so true, and people don't realize, and maybe this is something we can talk about now, that I believe it's really difficult, if not almost impossible, to get a truly compliant SOS free meal in a restaurant. And I say that because partly what you said, people don't realize that in restaurants, they don't cook your food to order, they assemble it to order. And that much of it, especially in these like popular big, I don't want to say any names, but restaurants that have more than one location. I'm sure there's some French restaurant somewhere where the people are actually cooking the food, but for the most part, it's all prepped before you get there. So when you order it, it's already been cooked in oil and salt. The pans had oil and salt and animal products in it. There's always going to be that residual. So I don't see how people are really eating SOS free in traditional restaurants unless they're getting just like a dry salad and something else like that.
Yeah, even upscale restaurants these days, you used to could go in and say, well, I'll have the broccoli and I'll have a potato and this, but it's even the broccoli has been cut up and frozen and sauteed in butter and then frozen and it's delivered. So it's not like you can take things apart and then rebuild it on somebody's plate. So, and this is, they don't cook, cook rice. So it's not like you can get rice. Even Chipotle is going to put oil in their rice. So it's really hard to, if you're not cooking at home. And I can tell you that when we first opened, it's sort of interesting. The people that know the least about nutrition are those who have the most influence. It's doctors and chefs. They don't teach nutrition at chef school. They use salt, oil, and sugar. And when we first opened, we physically had to take the salt out of the back because a chef would taste it and they're like, needs salt, needs sugar. It needs, needs these things. And it's sort of based on what that person's been eating at home, what they get used to.
That may be the greatest quote I've heard this year. The people who know the least about nutrition are the ones that have the most influence. Brilliant. I just typed it in the chat in capital letters. Yeah. It's so hard for, I wish we had a restaurant like yours, because I really think of restaurant eating as a punishment. I get no pleasure out of the amount of, and also because I eat so low calorie dense, the amount of food restaurants serve me, I would have to pay like triple. What they serve at a regular restaurant, so let's say whatever you pay for an entree, let's just say 15 or whatever. I don't know. It's been years since I've been to a restaurant. I need at least 3 of them to feel full. So why do I want to spend $50 plus a tip? I could eat for a week for that. So it's never fun for me. Your restaurant would be like the best for me. And I hear that there's some place in Austin, Casa de Luz, that does SOS free as well.
Yeah, they, I went there, I visited John Mackey, I guess about a year ago at Whole Foods, and Rip Esselstyn took us there. So that's an interesting place. It's sort of like it's a buffet it's not like a traditional restaurant. So, hopefully they're still open, but that's a neat place. And I don't know that they do organic, but I think that's, it's like, those are sort of the islands in the sea that you can turn to when you travel. So yeah, it's been a real interesting journey. I came from an engineering background and I knew very little really about growing plants and farming. And so I started like the Certified Master Gardener program 7 years ago. And what I've sort of come to learn is that food is to people like soil is to plants, that the impact of not only what was grown, but how it was grown is just as important as how it was cooked. If you can't warehouse food any more than you can grow children up in dark rooms on supplements and expect that they're going to thrive. So plants are living things. If I took you in my kitchen right now, I have, when I cook with beets, I cut the tops off beets and put them in water and then put them in soil and like regenerate the plant. And, if carrots wilt, it's like put them in water and they'll grow roots and you can grow another plant. But we're so used to just throwing things away and throwing, organic seeds away. And so it's really a different way of, thinking about our food and not only sustainability, but sort of regeneration.
Yeah. Well, my birthday's in a couple of days and Elspeth got me some sprouting jars and the sprouts are coming and I can't wait to start growing my own food.
Very, very cool. Well, you probably can grow a lot more than we can grow. I've got collards and dinosaur kale growing in my front yard right now. Started the concept of foodscaping, which is putting food into your landscape. And I think like the old victory gardens were something that I wish would come back, and so I'm trying to start that in small scale in my neighborhood.
So Stephanie is asking for the name of the GreenFare app again, and I got it while we were talking.
Okay, that's
it's called GreenFare Skinny Shop, and this is what it looks like once you get it. So pretty cool. I think people are just so addicted to sugar, fat, and salt, they don't even know it, and that's why they're not jumping to eat this way, whether vegan or not. I mean, even people that aren't vegan still want the sugar, fat, and salt.
I was visiting my parents this weekend. I hope I don't get into trouble with this, but my cousin wanted to know about a plant-based diet. And so I, was telling him about it. And I said, and this app, helps you to navigate the grocery store. And so I pulled out, I think it was mushrooms and tomato sauce and like 3 or 4 things from my mother's, from the closet, and scanned the barcode. And one after the other, they all had thumbs down on sodium. And, if you're eating at each meal, you add 1 or 2 things that are canned or preserved in some way, frozen, then you're going to have high blood pressure. It's like the fellow that was on the video, he had a patch on for, I think it was 14 years. And this was the first time he was able to take the patch off. So you can either eat the way you want and then take pills to try and make up for it, or you can take out the things that are causing harm and let your body regenerate. And so it's really a choice.
Wow. Well, I'd love to meet some of those people on the video. They sound great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for all you do. I just wish you were a little bit closer or would open over here.
Well, when you come out to visit Sharon, you'll have to make a trip down to GreenFare, and I would love to host you in a cooking class. And
that would be amazing. And I mean it, like, please get in touch with me after the show. Let's get Pericles on as soon as possible. And when your dog food book comes on, we'll have you on and you'll maybe make a recipe from it.
Thanks very much, Chef AJ. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show.
Oh my God, it was such a pleasure getting to
know
you. Thank you so much, Gwyn. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. I don't even know the name of my show. Live, what does that mean? Please come back in 2 hours when I have another lovely guest. Her name is Dr. Nikki Davis, and she is actually going to be doing a culinary demo. She's going to be making a dal. Thanks again, Gwyn. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.